It was a big bloody Sunday. John Lewis was a woman, Miss Mia Boynton. They paid the price that Sunday for our right to vote.
Reverend, what do you feel is John Lewis's most underappreciated legacy?
Well, the impact of the vote. You know, a lot of focus down on police behavior. Police patrol us. Politicians control us. Politicians control police. The vote is beginning to change everything. And John Lewis was factoring the vote. The vote is the key to our kingdom. You think about Montgomery and the bus boycott in Selma, Alabama, and Birmingham. Those cities have black mayors now because we have the right to vote. And the Trump people are determined to undermine that vote. We're not going to let them. And so John Lewis's legacy is talent in the power of the vote and nonviolent demonstrations.
It seemed to me that part of what made John Lewis so special wasn't just the bravery he showed in the face of countless police beatings, but also his decision to forgive those same police in later years. That kind of charity and grace that he showed, do you worry that it's been slightly endangered these days?
Well, in the real sense, that's the art of nonviolence. That unearned suffering is redemptive. You forgive, you redeem, and you move on. You don't have your heart paralyzed with anger and hatred. And that was Dr. King's notion. I share the same idea. The people, the police and whites who hate us are more sick than mean. So we do not spend the time trying to reject them, but trying to reconcile with them to make them better human beings.
Now, you've spoken about some of the changes since the 60s. In your view, over the last few years, have the problems involving race become worse? Or do you think they're just getting more mainstream attention?
I think that Trump has done an awful lot to set race relations back by inciting fear in people. If a wall is between you and I, behind the wall is ignorance, fear, hatred, and violence. And when we pull the walls down, we begin to play ball together, to serve military together, we begin to function together. Trump reversed the norms and gave white people a sense of unfounded fear. On the basis of fear of black people, we made America better in every dimension.
Reverend Jackson, you marched with Dr. King, you saw Dr. King die in Memphis. You also saw Barack Obama elected President of the United States 40 years later. I wonder, what else would you like to live to see?
Well, I want to see us in this year use our collective vote to defeat Donald Trump. Trump represents something dangerous to America, using the presidency for personal gain, without enforcing the environmental laws and our Constitution, playing on racial fears. In Africa and the Caribbean are S-holes, you know, the S stands for. A Mexican judge was incapable of being judicious. The Charlottesville situation where you had the white supremacists march with tiki lamps challenging Jews, banning Muslims. He's done some awful stuff to America. And we cannot afford that. We're more isolated in the world. We are isolated from the G7 countries. We're isolated from our neighbors in Canada and Mexico. We deserve better leadership in this. So I want to see Trump defeated.
It seems like over the last few months, the pulling down of statues has been receiving a disproportionate amount of attention from both protesters and from the media. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, yes, we defeated slavery and saved the Union. Lincoln freed us, and we saved Lincoln, and we saved the Union. 200,000 blacks joined the Union Army and helped to defeat the South. Those who engage in treason against America have statues unto themselves. Can you imagine people engage in treason, honor with statues and boulevards named for them? And most of these statues were erected during the Civil Rights era, were really after 1920 or 30. I mean, can you imagine Hitler statues in Germany? Of course not. Global statues in Germany? Of course not. So the idea these statues shouldn't have been in the first place. We're getting better. We want to purify the stream. We'll be a better nation. We must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, not die apart. We must learn to live together. We must learn to live together. We must learn it.
And Reverend Jackson, of course, the Edmund Pettus Bridge itself is a memorial to the Confederacy. Pettus was a Confederate general and a Klansman. What do you think of these moves to rename it the John Lewis Bridge? Absolutely,
it should be. And it should be put on the side of the bridge. Edmund Pettus was a Confederate general. He was a Klansman. And another case of where you have to cross the bridge every day, a Confederate. I mean, these guys engaged in treason against the United States. Lincoln forgave them to help revive the Union. Robert E. Lee said, whose statue was a big deal in Virginia, said, don't put any Confederate symbolism around my grave because it will impede the process of reconciliation. People engaged in treason are not honored. Their symbols are vanquished. So the idea of having these Confederate statues was unacceptable. But America, in a strange way, we got free in 1865. What happened was that the troops were removed in 1877. We went from slave masters to segregation masters, and they were very brutal. Blacks separate equal, blacks had no access to voting. I never saw black police until I was 20 years old.